So, the attacks on Rick Santorum continue. Rush raised the specter of, what if it's because he has 7 kids and women don't like that? The left has a sort of anti-family mentality. And I don't just mean the gay, straight thing. I mean that people who have lots of kids are somehow bad people. In fact, Joe Biden went to China back in October. And I think it's an established American belief that their one-child policy, the forced one-child policy, is as big and is as clear an example of government dictating people's lives as you can get. I mean, this is Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. This is test tube babies. This is a loss of control in your life. This is Orwellian in the worst possible way. And then Joe Biden says, well, we don't have a problem with that.
Your policy has been one which I fully understand. I'm not second-guessing, of one child per family.
What do you mean you're not second-guessing? Yeah, we second-guess that. We find that sickening. We find that disgusting. We stand for freedom, and that isn't freedom. Because if a woman gets pregnant with a second child, she's forced to abort it, and everybody knows that. Controlling the size of a family is not the domain of government. And that is as central to the core of who we are as Americans, as free individuals, as anything out there. Well, then you fast forward to the contraception debate, which has been laid out over the course of a few months to try to make conservatives out to be exactly what the left actually are, and that is people who want to control your life. Conservatives are not trying to take anybody's contraception away. They simply don't want to administer it themselves. And having an opinion that you don't believe in contraception is a long way from taking someone else's contraception away from them. But it's bigger than contraception. It's the idea that if a woman has multiple babies, that somehow the man forced her into it, and it's an Andrea Yates situation all over again. She's stuck at home tending to babies, and she can't go out and work in the workplace, which is apparently for all women the greatest form of fulfillment. I can tell you, we've had dinner parties where there will be 4 couples. 2 of the couples, the women work outside the home, including in ours, and the other 2, the women don't. And it is interesting. I don't care how successful that woman is that is now working at home. I don't care how successful she is professionally. The attitude is dismissive because she doesn't have a business card with a title on it. Now, in many cases, she was a senior partner of a law firm, because we have a lot of friends that that's the case. Or she's a vice president, or even in one case, the president of a company. And she decided at some point, second or third kid usually, you know what? We're okay financially. I only have these kids for a few years. I can go back to work later, and in many cases they do. I really want to be here for my children the way my mother was here for me. And so women will make a conscious decision, and it's a tough decision for a household. These are women making $250,000, $350,000, $400,000 a year. To give that up, to stay at home, it often means downsizing the house. It often means selling off the second house. It often means getting rid of domestic help. It means no new cars. I'm not saying these people are suffering. I'm not trying to say that. But I am saying it is making a financial sacrifice so that they can spend the time at home with their children, particularly during their formative years. You don't have to do it, but if a woman chooses to do that, I think there is amongst the left a lack of respect. Because with the doors opening to corporate America, to women, it was as if you didn't walk through that door, you're a bad person. I had a law professor named Lino Graglia, Lino Graglia, Graglia. And anybody who went to University of Texas Law School will know who I'm talking about. You can look up Lino Graglia and some of the things he's said and written over the years. He's a very, very impressive man. In 1986, Ronald Reagan appointed 2 individuals to federal courts. The first was to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. His name was Lino Graglia. For the first time in American history, the American Bar Association, a supposedly nonpartisan but semi-communist organization, came out and said, we don't believe this man is qualified to serve on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Now, there are federal district courts, and then you appeal to a court of appeals, the Fifth Circuit being the one for Texas, Louisiana, meets in New Orleans, although he would have been housed in Houston. The second Court of Appeals is the one you hear the most about in New York, where a lot of the financial cases come. The ninth out of San Francisco. But Lino Graglia was a longtime law professor. He was a man of impeccable legal credentials. And the ABA came out against him, and Joe Biden, then head of Senate Judiciary, came out against him. Ted Kennedy came out against him. They made him out to be a raging racist. They made him out to be the worst person ever because he had opposed school busing. Graglia was defeated, and they thought they broke him, but he was a better man than that. The second man of Italian ancestry who followed closely behind him was to the United States Supreme Court, and that was Antonin Scalia. The blowback to the destruction they had done to Lino Graglia's reputation was felt in the fact that Antonin Scalia sailed through. It's an interesting history, but his wife, who he will admit is much brighter than him, topping their law school at Columbia Law, his wife clerked for the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. And when they had their second child, she decided to stay at home. This is a woman that had worked at Dewey Ballantine, one of the biggest firms in America. She had started, I believe, at Cravath, Swaine & Moore, then gone to Dewey Ballantine. She'd been a Supreme Court clerk. Incredible legal credentials. She could have done anything she wanted. It was thought she may even one day serve on the United States Supreme Court. She decided to be a stay-at-home mom and raise those children. And she wrote a book about the fact that liberals, when she would give a speech, would criticize her decision. And the fact that the Gertrude Steins and all these supposed advancements for women and women libs had actually been a setback for women who felt that their primary responsibility was the household. This all comes back to Rick Santorum. Stay tuned.
The Michael Berry Show.